Oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, there I am. Hey everybody, how you doing? It's me again, Truth Teacher, coming at you with another live stream video to cover another topic. So if you guys jump in, wow, that was quick. Hi Denise, how you doing, sweetie? Yeah, I know. I love my knots too, man. This is like my favorite, easy go-to style. So you know how I do it, man. It's like this is if I don't do live streams, these little live streams, I ain't gonna have no content on my channel at all. So I'm gonna make this really short. I'm not gonna be here for like no 2 hours and shit. But I want to address um, the conversation we had on Radical's channel last night. Now, I guess after a certain while, I'll drop the link, and we can, if anyone wants to jump in and have a little discussion, we could do that. Hey, Morena. Hey, sweetie. Listen, I'm doing a live stream now, so I'm gonna drop the link soon, and you promised you would you promised you would jump on. So, okay. So anyway, like last night, I don't have any power to oppress no one. Well, we're gonna talk about that. So, we were discussing that issue last night on Radical's channel. And I made, like a few statements regarding that, and I'd like to go a little bit deeper on that. Now, ever since we've been challenging this whole notion of white supremacy, right? There's been, I want to say, like maybe within the past 10 years or so, there's been a certain level of pushback by people in certain right wing circles and saying that, claiming reverse racism, right? Like when something doesn't go their way, oh, that's reverse racism. And then that sparked a debate about can people of color in this society be racist? And, a kind of redefinition of the term racism itself, right? So when I was growing up, racism was just another word. It was used interchangeably with prejudice, right? So any kind of statement or sentiment that was disparaging to another group of people based on their race was considered racist, you know? That concept started to be reformulated in that people started to define racism not just as a way of expressing negative sentiments towards other groups of people, but to look at the larger scope of the political and economic scope of it. And so a lot of people will say that no, people of color cannot be because they're not in a position to subjugate people to the same kind of negative consequences that black people and Native Americans and Latinos and other people of interesting skin tones and cultures have been subjected to states. And while I can understand that aspect of it, I really, really disagree in certain areas. I look at this whole dynamic as being something. Hey, Tina, how you doing, sweetie? I look at this whole dynamic as being, there's levels to it, right? So on the one level, you have, like name calling, right? using racial slurs. Another level would be to engage in behaviors that negatively affect another group of people. And then a higher level would be, like outward, just outright taking somebody's life based on the fact that they're of a certain skin tone, they're a certain ethnic group, whatever. So there's levels to it. And now what we've began seeing, I want to say within the past 15 years, we've begun to see on social media people from certain minority groups engaging in hate speech that's very reminiscent of hate groups, white power groups such as the KKK, the neo Nazis, the skinheads, etc., etc. But there's been a lot of conflict and confusion because we have this paradigm in our minds that if you're a person of color, you can't be racist. And I think it's led a lot of us feeling a little bit hesitant and confused in how do we deal with these kinds of behaviors and these kind of individuals when they're saying things that if it was coming out of a white person's mouth would automatically get them canceled, but we're hesitant to treat them the same way we would like a neo-Nazi, right? Or a white nationalist, because we have this concept of, well, they're one of us, right? We kind of have this thinking that, okay, we all have our own individual ethnic groups that we belong to, but to a certain extent, in the context of this country, we kind of think of ourselves as being part of a collective, right? And that collective is, there's many names we use for it: minorities, people of color, um, you know, terms like that. So even though we have different cultures, we kind of see ourselves as being part of a larger collective in that experience, we have historically and currently socially experienced systems of systematic oppression, right? So it's like, well, we can't do that kind of thing. But what I would like to get across is that I think a lot of times we overthink things too much. We get so caught up in the semantics that we fail to see the real significance of the problem. Now, for me, I would just classify all of it racist because, like I said before, there's levels of racism, okay? So, no, maybe they can't inflict that kind of harm on the white population as a whole, right? Because they don't have the economic and the political strength to do so. But on a smaller level, right? Within the scope of their own, who the hell is even talking about Hispanics right now? You know, I'm talking about people of color in general. Whatever. Welcome to the stream. Don't forget to hit the like button or give it a thumbs down, whichever you prefer. So, what was I saying now? Within the scope of your social interaction, we definitely can have that kind of power where we negatively impact an individual or even in some cases, a group of people within the community, right? I mean, I've experienced it, like when my uncle passed away, he left my mom a condominium. He left my mom his condo. It was in a really nice building on the Grand Concourse. It's one of the top buildings on the entire Grand Concourse. It's down by Yankee Stadium, and he was on the 21st floor. Looking directly down into Yankee Stadium, you could see the entire Manhattan skyline, plus the George Washington Bridge. I mean, this was like a prime piece of real estate. Now, the only downside was that he had, when he got sick with the cancer, he wasn't able to take care of the place and it really got run down really bad. So we wanted to make, renovations. The plan was to renovate it and rent it out because there were other people in the building that were doing the same thing. Now, it just so happens that the majority of people who were on the co-op board were Latino, okay? And they refused to let my mother do any kind of renovations whatsoever. I mean, even to take the garbage out, to clean the place, they made her jump through so many hoops. And there were other people in the building, they were like, well, they never did that with us. And, long story short, we rent the place out. We couldn't renovate it. The only thing that we could do was sell it. And you can imagine that it was very hard to find a buyer for the place. And when we did find a buyer for the place, it went for maybe a quarter of what it was really worth. Now, let's stop and think about that. A prime piece of real estate that we could have been renting out, that could have been generating income for our family. When my mom, a few years later got sick and was in a really serious situation, had we had that property and the income that it was generating, we would have been able to take care of my mom much better. We would have been able to take care of my aunt much better because a year later, she also had a stroke and she's, you know, in a situation that could have gone towards, all of the family members and helping us in any way that we needed. That would have been something that could have been passed down in the family. So, because of their actions, they negatively impacted us. So, we were affected, you know, economically. That was racism. What they were trying to do was starve my mom out. And they were hoping that she would foreclose and then they could have snapped that property up really, really cheap, renovated it, and, made a killing on it. That's what they were planning to do. And I can talk about many other instances where, I was negatively impacted by African Americans or black people. We're all put together in this whole category here in this country. We're all black, right? If you're of African descent and you're English speaking, I can talk about when I was a school teacher and I had the English teacher in the last junior high school that I worked in, who was supposedly this big Afrocentric black woman, right? Who was trying to destroy my career any way that point where she went to female students. Hey, Cokie Angel, what's up, man? She went to some of the female students and told them, that, we had gone out on a trip to the Bronx Zoo. And she told them when we came back to go to the principal and tell the principal that M- Mr. Truth Teacher sexually molested you while you were on a trip. is with like four girls. Now, I'm lucky that the principal kind of liked me. And so she really talked to those girls and said, I want you to really think about what you're doing here because this can have very serious repercussions, not only on his job, but on the rest of his life. What could have happened to me? Hey, hey, Jay, what's up? What could have happened to me if, let's say, it was a situation where I'm bumping heads with the principal and she really didn't like me and she felt, oh, here's my chance. That could have had repercussions on the rest of my life. Who the hell is going to want to hire somebody who was a sexual predator? I mean, if it really went, you know, to court and everything and they stuck to their story, I could have ended up with, an accusation of being a sex offender on my record for the rest of my life. And that's something that another black person willfully tried to do to me. So for me, my main point is that to me, I think we're really wasting time sitting down having all of these discussions and all the semantics of who's a racist, what's racist, oh no, you can't be a racist. What we're dealing with here in this society is in how do you say institutionalized racism, a system of white supremacy, right? But understand that white supremacy is not a living, breathing entity in and of itself. It's an ideology, it's a state of mind, it's a consciousness. And in order for it to have an effect, it has to have people who are willing to carry out those ideas, those precepts, right? Those policies. You can have a policy on the books, but if you don't have somebody, a tangible person who's willing to do the work to make it a reality in the tangible world, it really doesn't have any effect whatsoever. So, whether the person who is engaging in these kind of behaviors is a person of color or a white person, it really doesn't make any difference because at the end of the day, they are an agent of racism. They are voluntarily collaborating and cooperating with a system that is designed to undermine people of color, right? Now, the question that the issue that a lot of people will say, like for example, Brotep, he was talking about this idiot woman Tia Tequila or some crap like that. I forgot what her name is. That she might be talking all of this stuff, but she can't be a racist because she's not going to benefit from white supremacy. And I understand where he's coming from with that, but I have to beg to differ because she might not benefit in terms of getting tangible benefits from that kind of behavior necessarily, right? But she is getting a benefit. She is getting a payoff. She's getting an emotional payoff. And this is the thing that I think a lot of us have to take into consideration, especially when we're looking at other people of color who are engaging in behaviors and hate speech towards people of their own group or another group of people who are equally oppressed within our society. For these people, for whatever reason, they perceive the white power structure as being exactly that. That's the winning team. And by getting on the winning team, they get some kind of emotional gratification from that, right? Maybe it's a gratification of, oh, well, I'm not like all those others. I'm special. Well, I'm accepted. I'm the exception to the rule. Or they get some kind of feeling of belonging to something, a sense of camaraderie. It's fulfilling something within their lives emotionally that's been lacking. So they are getting a benefit out of it, right? Some of them do get tangible benefits from it. For example, we all know that in the 1960s, we all know about the civil rights marches down in the South and the voter registration drives and all of that. But what people don't talk about so much is the fact that within the black communities in the South, there were certain individuals that were not on board with the civil rights movement and the civil rights activists. They were actually being paid by organizations like the Ku Klux Klan to undermine the actions of civil rights activists in their communities. These were people like community leaders, um, ministers, teachers. They were actually being paid. They were getting paid a kickback in order to discredit these people in the community and to dissuade the people in their communities from joining in. They were people who were paid by the FBI to infiltrate freedom organizations, to spy and to bring back information and, to instigate illegal activities that could then be targeted, would set people up to be targeted by law enforcement. They were getting paid, they were getting a tangible reward. So maybe no, maybe they were not on the same level as a white person, and they certainly didn't have the amount of economic or political power, but they were getting something. They were getting a payback, you know? They were being rewarded for those actions. And I think that's what we have to focus on more than anything else. We have to focus on the fact that just because somebody might be from our particular ethnic group does not necessarily mean that they're working in our best interests. There are collaborators, people who will gladly, or as we call them, sellouts. That is a real thing. And to me, they're just as dangerous as a white person, calling you the N word or calling you, the S word or whatever, or doing what they can to make sure that you don't get a promotion at your job or you get fired. What difference does it make? I mean, look at my situation, for example, when I was a school teacher, um, I had someone who was trying to take my job away and to ruin my entire career. Now, would it have made any difference if the person doing that was white? What difference would it have made? As a matter of fact, the crazy thing about it is I had two situations like that. The very first school that I started working at, the woman who took a dislike to me and was trying to destroy my career was a white woman. And then the second school that I went to, the exact same thing was happening, but this time it was a black woman. What difference did it make? What difference did it make? It didn't make any difference whatsoever. So when it comes to people, for example, like, our favorite, blonde chimpanzee in the jungles of the Dominican Republic, or, you know, delusional Dominicans, or like the incredible taco salesman from Central America, whose name we will not mention, but we all know who I'm talking about. The kind of rhetoric that they're espousing is not only hurting black people, but it's also geared towards people in their own group that don't go along with their rhetoric. So at first, everybody thought this blonde gorilla was a Dominican nationalist until you started hearing what he was saying more and more. And then you realize that he really wasn't about the well being of the Dominican people as a whole. He only cared about a very specific demographic. He was actually against the overwhelming majority of the Dominican people. So imagine if somebody like this gets into of power, okay, let's just use our imaginations. Okay, let's suspend belief here, okay? How do you think he would treat the average Dominican who is obviously a person who is heavily melanated with significant African ancestry? If your belief is that what we need in the Dominican Republic to make it a better country is to bring more white people from Spain, what kind of policies are you going to get behind? Are you going to get behind policies that would be designed to helping people get out of poverty if you believe that only a certain demographic of people should be in the Dominican Republic? It just doesn't make any sense. You have this idea of Hispanidad, and you're going around espousing this mythology that the Spanish Empire treated everybody with equality and respect. And yet, and still, in a lot of countries, Central America, a lot of areas in Mexico, Native American people are being discriminated against. Not even just little things like being called names, but actually being outright killed by militia groups. They're being marginalized, kept in a cycle of poverty, underprivileged, underrepresented, no access to employment, decent housing, medical supplies, education. You know, um, but you're coming up with this narrative that everything is fine. How is that everything is fine when you have people who are being oppressed and you are completely ignoring it and everything is wonderful, everything is fine, don't look over there. Those people are suffering. They're not being helped. All these people that we see ending up on our border right now, would I mean, just stop and think for a second what it would take. I mean, put yourself in that person's shoes and think to yourself, wherever it is that you live right now, how desperate would your life have to be for you to pick up and like walk, let's say, across the country to California? I don't know how the hell do these people, I don't know how they make it. How do you travel through God knows how many countries when you have no guarantee of where you're going to get food, water? How the hell do you I mean, that is Shelter. Where the hell do you sleep? When hurricanes come through and we all know in the summertime, hurricanes come through on a regular basis. It rains. Where do you sleep? Where are you getting food? Where are you getting water? Are you how are you providing for your basic human needs? They have no idea how they're going to do it. All they know is that they're willing to do anything that they can to get someplace else where they can have a chance of being able to make a life for themselves. What the hell is going on in your country that things are so desperate you're willing to give up everything that was normal and dependable and to put yourself in that kind of situation? And then to have somebody come along and deny the challenges that you're going through. Oh, no, no, no. España, what we need to do to solve our problems is we need to revive the Spanish Empire again. What the hell is that going to do? Arguing over, are we Latino or are we Hispano? And the three roots and all of this crap and in Cristo Rey. And how the hell is Cristo Rey solving the fact that you've got narco death gangs coming through your area, rounding up people and killing them? It's just delusional. So, yeah, Viva Crisore. Yeah, I drink that shit all the time. It's delicious. As if you don't think that people are praying to God. You think they're not praying to God about the crap that's going on around them? Yeah, they're praying to God. They're praying to God, please keep me alive so that I can get across the border in the United States and get a decent life. That's what they're praying for. Cristore ain't doing shit to curb all the chaos that's happening in those countries right now. Okay, Cristore isn't doing anything about the narco trafficking, the human trafficking. We ain't even talking about that. Sitting down and praying ain't doing a goddamn thing about the rise of femicides happening in some of these countries. But you're going to ignore all of that, and talk about, this Disneyland impression of how wonderful things were under the Spanish Empire, and then turn around and start going on like, like black people are the worst thing that's happening to you. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's like black people are not the ones running these terrorist drug gangs in Mexico. Black people are not the ones that are killing women in Honduras. So miss me with that bullshit for a second, please. It's ridiculous. So once again, like people like this are really undermining the quality of life of people in their communities. And if that's the case, what difference does it make if this person has a dark skin tone or if they're white with blonde hair and blue eyes? At the end of the day, people's lives are being negatively impacted. So I think that that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on what's really happening. And we need to hold these people accountable in the same way that we would be holding a white person accountable if they said it. And I don't give a damn if they're African American or not. If you're coming and you're saying, you're calling black women or black men out of their name, you deserve to have the same amount of scrutiny and the same negative consequences than if it was a white person doing it, because at the end of the day, you're doing the same damage. We need to just be honest about, instead of worrying about the name, what is the effect that this is having on the lives of real people every day? That's what we need to focus on. Not what label or what title or however you want to spin your head around it. That's what we need to focus on. So I see a couple of people here. I'm going to put the link. Let me see how I do this. If you want to jump on, we're not going to be here for a whole goddamn long time. But if you want to chime in, then I'm going to drop the link and you can jump in and share your thoughts. But if you're coming in with your bullshit, yes, it's going to get bounced up out of here like really quick. Okay, so there's the link. If anyone wants to jump in and share their thoughts, you're welcome. Now's your time to jump in. Okay, looks like I don't have any takers. Everybody gets scared to come on my lives. But, like, basically, if no one comes in, then, that's cool. And I'll just end the stream. But basically, that's what I wanted. I wanted to share my perspective on the situation with you guys. Um, like I said, I think we spend too much time worrying about, little semantics and word games and things, and we need to be paying more attention to the real life consequences that are happening. So this stuff where you got these black people who are saying, like Rad played some things about, these African Americans. They were saying the most horrible things about Africans. And dark skin black people, like the colorist things, all these are colorism. Listen, it's all the same thing. Colorism. Look, for me personally, I call it bullshit. To me, it's all racism. It's either external racism, racism projected outwards to another group, or expressions of internalized racism. Because when you have someone who's saying these colorist remarks, all that is white supremacy that has been internalized, and now you're projecting it outward towards yourself and other people around you in your group. But where did it come from to begin with? It came from that white supremacist paradigm. It's the same mentality. So poison is poison. Okay? If somebody comes and they want to put arsenic in your tea, does it really matter if that person was, the next door neighbor, or if it was your brother or sister? Poison is still poison. Is the poison going to kill you any slower because your mother gave it to you to drink? Or maybe the poison works quicker if it's the next door neighbor, right? No, it has the same effect, right? You're dead. What difference does it make? So to me, this kind of toxicity, toxic behavior, toxic speech, no matter where it's coming from, we all know what it is, and it needs to be dealt with. And those people need to be held accountable for their behaviors and their actions. One of the disturbing things that Rad shared last night is this woman who was she was pretty high up in the legal system, right? In the court system, calling black men, what was she calling them? Bullet bags. So now can you imagine how much damage this woman has done to black men who've come into her court, where she was in a position to defend them or to prosecute them? If she automatically sees black men as bullet bags, is she going to be willing to listen to their testimony, to what they have to say? Or is she just automatically going to assume that they're guilty and just treat them the same way a racist white legal representative would do them? Now, if it came out that it was a white person that was calling these, calling black men bullet bags, oh my God, we wouldn't hear the work. We wouldn't hear the end of it. We wouldn't hear the end of it. That person would lose their job and all kinds of things. But because it was a black woman saying it, oh, well, we got to treat this differently. Why? Why should we treat it differently? Whether it was a black woman or a black man or whatever, why should we treat it any differently? It's still a very toxic and harmful mentality that should not be allowed. A person with that kind of mentality should not be allowed to officiate in that context, in that profession. They should be moved. They should lose their license to practice, honestly, because there's no way that they're going to be able to officiate in that capacity in any kind of meaningfully objective way. So that's the way I call it. That's what I wanted to share. And I think that we are in the process of dealing with the aftermath of slavery, segregation. We're just beginning to work towards trying to right the wrongs that have been done in our society historically. And we're still dealing with a lot of it and trying to root it out. And unfortunately, a lot of us, quote unquote, people of color, have been negatively impacted psychologically by these systems of oppression to the point where we have internalized those ideas and we're turning them on ourselves and each other. And that is a situation that needs to be addressed. I mean, like, I'm just about calling a thing because the names you give things changes the way you perceive it. Colorism. Oh, well, that's not so bad as right. No, it is devastating. Colorism has devastated millions of people's lives. It's destroyed lives. The kinds of things that people have done towards their own family members, towards their own children, based on issues of color and phenotype and hair type, which has gone on to completely destroy their lives. There's no excuse. Hey, sweetie, Denise, you want to jump in for a second? The link is there. Or where's Morena? Morena like escaped. She dodged out on me. Morena, you still here? Okay, nobody wants to jump in. Okay, that's fine. I guess everybody gets burnt out on live streams. But anyway, guys, that's what I wanted to share today. There's another issue from that live last night I'd like to talk about, but I'm not gonna do that. Not right now. I got some chores and stuff I need to do, so I'll probably do that at a later time, maybe. But I think that we just need to reevaluate the way we think about the world that we're living in and the issues that we deal with in our lives. I think a lot of us have gotten to a place where we're really stuck and we don't know what to do when the adversary doesn't follow the script of what we've believed the enemy should look like. It's like you don't believe that the enemy would have your own face, right? you think, automatically that if someone is from your ethnic group, or if they're another person who has experienced oppression, that they automatically should be sympathetic, and at the very least, you know, be there to defend you if they see that you're having a hard time. But unfortunately, that's just not reality. And I think, honestly, colonialism, slavery, all the things that we experience in this country when it came to segregation, the reason why those social institutions were able to survive as long as they did was because nobody challenged them. It was because you had a lot of people who internalized these ideas, and they worked to uphold those institutions. I have a project for everyone to do. Truth Teachers giving you homework, okay? I want you to look up famous slave revolts in the Western Hemisphere, in Latin America, in the United States. I want you to look, I want you to see, count the total number of slave revolts that happened, and look at the number that were actually successful. And then ask yourself, do a little bit of research. When you come up with them, do a little bit of research and ask yourself, well, why did this slave revolt fail? Why wasn't it successful? And you're going to notice something, right? The reason why most of those slave revolts were not successful had nothing to do, absolutely nothing to do with white people. So, what does that tell you? It was actually the people who were themselves enslaved who had the opportunity to sabotage those attempts. So, once again, it all comes back to us and people who look like us. And a lot of our movements for liberation failed because we failed to recognize the fact that in our midst, there were people in our communities, in our families, who were collaborating with the system of oppression for whatever reason. They were getting some kind of reward, whether it was a tangible reward or it was an emotional reward or a psychological reward. But they undermined us. And so moving forward, we need to learn from the mistakes, not only the successes of our ancestors, but from the mistakes as well, and say, okay, what are we going to change this time around? And I think this is a crucial piece. When you see someone or you hear someone who is engaging in racist behavior or speech, do not be fooled if they happen to have the same skin tone as the person that they're attacking or the group of people that they're attacking, or if they are even a part of that group. Do not be fooled. It is what it is. It's the same thing. It's white supremacy, it's racism. Think of it like a science fiction movie or a thriller, right? How many movies have we seen where somebody gets possessed with a spirit, right? Spirit of a murderer, right? But that spirit invades the body of the protagonist's wife or their child. or their friend. Just because they're in the body of somebody that they loved doesn't make a difference, because the chaos that they're doing is still having the same negative effect. And that's exactly the same way you got to look at people in our communities and in our families who are engaging in these kinds of behavior. Sometimes you're going to have to cut family loose. Sometimes you're going to have to cut friends loose. Call them out on the bullshit. Hey, Daniel. Yeah, I know. I didn't. You know how I do my shit, man. It's always like on the spur of the moment. But yeah, Daniel, if you want to jump in, man, it's like I got the link up in there. Let me drop the link again. If you want to jump on and share something, I'll give you a minute. I'll give it like one more minute for anybody that would like to join in and share their perspective on what the points that I raised. I think that we need to just be aware and stop with the okey doke. Stop with the overthinking shit all the time. We need to just call it out. We need to call it out. If it's racism, it's racism. It just is what it is. It's not, oh, well, they're a person of color and this is listen, stop making excuses for these people, right? Oh, they're victims as well. Not really, because these are the people that are willing to take you out. Come on, man. We got to be really honest about what's going on in our communities. Uh, Radical is a race hustler on the same level as a dope dealer. um, that's your opinion. I disagree. But Radical is somebody that's been, he's been calling out the bullshit, and he's not afraid to call the bullshit out, even if it's someone from his own group. Morena, you here, sweetie? Why don't you jump on, man? You promised me. Yo, the link is there in this box, man. Jump on. Imagine thinking three core impacts a community as a whole. Well, you know something? You know something, Guanaco? At least he's doing something. At least he's calling attention to the problems. At least he's calling out the bullshit. You know? Pocho. Okay, hold on. Let me add you guys. Morena. Yo, Pocho, what up, man?
What's up, bro? How you been? How you been?
I've been good, man. I've been just
Yeah,
getting my last licks in, man. I'm just doing this live stream really quick, and then I'm gonna go do my chores and stuff for the day.
nice, nice. I don't know how long you've been streaming. I just kind of popped in just now. Been doing some stuff today, but I've heard a little bit of what you were saying, and I gotta say, dude, you're coming in with a lot of good, let's just say, perspective.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, what do you think about what I've been saying? That I mean, because like I
yeah,
said, my personally, I don't think it really makes a difference. Um, I don't think it really makes a difference. What am I trying?
yeah.
I'm trying to get rid of this. Hold on. I'm trying to get rid of Guanaco's thing. Imagine thinking, how do I get rid of this? Hide. Bye.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, yeah, yeah. Fuck that
I,
troll.
I don't think it really makes a difference, what we call it, because the effect is still the same. It's still
Mhm.
just as toxic,
Yeah, and that's
you
something that
know?
I wanted to ask you too yesterday because obviously, yesterday, The topic was good yesterday. Can people of color be racist? Unfortunately, the topic kind of derailed
Yeah, we went
into
into another
gender
thing.
wars and all that stuff. And I mean, I can't speak for any of that stuff, so I had to go on last night's stream because for me it was just getting boring, unfortunately. But I did want to ask you before I was basically let go. I wanted to ask you, like, when you talk about a collaborator in the system, like let's say that woman who's a
Hmm.
DA in Texas, right? She's a perfect example of this, right? Because she's a DA, and as a district attorney, you have tremendous amount of power of who goes to jail and who doesn't, and you're almost at the same footing of like a judge, almost, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it's like when you said that collaborators of that feed into the system of white supremacy, whether they know it or not, or whether they might be themselves, holding the prejudice, misconceptions, and things like that that would lead them to their opinions. I think, in my opinion, yes, that's just as bad. But let's go to like the bigger point here, the bigger picture, and that is
Hmm.
that who, like, let's say this DA decides to basically like imprison a bunch of black people. Does that really
Yeah.
benefit, or like a judge does that really benefit um her community, or does that just benefit, is she just going to get a few brownie points as an individual who's a part of that system? And I think that collaborators only get benefits individually speaking because they're
Yeah.
collaborators
Exactly.
for a short period of time.
You see, the thing is that collaborators, they're really not concerned with the greater good. They're in it for themselves. It's like, well, what's in it for me? That's the mentality. So
Yeah.
they could really give a damn about what happens to everybody else, as long as, it's like being on the Titanic. And they don't give a damn what happens to everybody else as long as they get a
Mhm.
spot on the lifeboat.
Yeah, like they see themselves more as like just an individual. Like, okay, like Chivo, for
Exactly.
example. Obviously, Chivo, the things that he says, I mean, that's just going to feed into white supremacist narratives that's ultimately going to backfire at Hispanics at large, right? Or
Yeah.
Latinos, whatever. I mean, that's obviously going to be the end result of it. But as an individual, I don't think Chivo himself really cares because he's already basically made up his mind that, you know what, yeah, I rather identify more with my white side or with the white people than the Latin side. So I'm just not gonna care as a person, what
Yeah.
happens to the group as a whole. I don't see myself as a part of that.
Yeah. I think that's really where his mind is, and but he just doesn't have the courage to come out and say that he really doesn't give a fuck about Latinos, because obviously he's got to have some kind of base, right? I mean, like, he's into
Yeah.
this thing for attention, right? That's his payoff. And I think he
Well,
knows
I mean,
in
I don't want to just focus on Chivo because, like, let's be honest. I mean, at this point, Chivo's kind of irrelevant. I mean, the guy has like what 600 subscribers. He used to have over 2,000. So,
did he
Chivo's
really?
a perfect. Yeah, you didn't know? Yeah,
But it's just that kind of mentality. It's like people
yeah.
like this. We could also mention another person who we won't, but rumor has it he makes some killer tacos. You know, and I heard that his three roots tea is to die for.
Right,
But
right.
people like this, I think, and I think I'm right, that these were people who tried to become part of white nationalist circles, but
Hmm.
they weren't really accepted, and so they came up with their own version of Wignatism with some
Yeah,
adobo seasoning.
yeah.
You
Well,
know?
yeah. I mean, people like Dom Rand, for example, is a perfect example of this, right? Because Dom Rand
Yeah.
was literally, I mean, look, according to you, right? But Dom Rand was, you said that you found him in comment sections under Red Ice videos and stuff like that,
Yeah. Protep did.
watching that type of far right stuff. So I think Dom Rand is a perfect example of what you're saying because he literally called himself Dominican Renaissance, and he admits that that's an offshoot of American Renaissance.
Yeah.
So he's not necessarily promoting white nationalism in and of itself. He's promoting his own little Dominican nationalism version, which is basically his white nationalism.
That's why I agree
Yeah.
with. Hey, everybody.
Hey
What's
Terrell,
up?
what's up?
Good. Yeah, that one thing I noticed about Dominican Renaissance, he basically go on these white supremacist channels and take their talking points, and then he trying to convert it into the Dominican version of national racism. And he used this towards Haitians and African Americans because those the two group of people he don't like, and he say he don't mess around with them. He stays away from them because he say like when he in school and college he didn't mess with African Americans, so he be on those channels taking their
Wait,
ideas and convert it
are
into
you
his
serious?
own.
Are you serious?
Yes, he said that on a couple of panels, old panels. And
Wow.
What did he say?
Wow. Wow.
well, on one of the panels, you know, someone called him that he was acting
This
like an
kid is
African.
so fucking crazy, bro.
Someone called him. He was acting like a whiny black kid, and he said told this person that he didn't mess around with African Americans. He don't be around them.
So that's how crazy is that?
Wow.
So
Wow.
basically, you're saying that you don't have any interactions with African Americans. So what are you so upset about then? Like that means that they've done absolutely nothing to you.
Yeah,
So
Oh
make
you
it
know
no,
what
make
that
sense.
reminds me of? It reminds me of Nick Fuentes' little speech that he did. Nick Fuentes, obviously, if you don't know, he's a white nationalist,
Yeah.
and yeah, he said in one of his doofus fucking fucktard events like a month ago or so, he said, "Oh, I don't have a problem with non-white people as long as they're separated from white people." Right? That's what he said in America. That is, and something that I pointed out, kind of like as a commentary, I said, "Well, apparently you still have a problem with non-white people, even if they're completely away from you." As you said that you don't even live around non-white people, yet you still have a problem with them. So it's kind of like Don Brand. It's like he doesn't even hang out with African Americans. He doesn't live around African Americans. He wants them probably to be segregated, right? Um, so he shares a lot of the same sentiment as someone like Nick Fuentes, for example. Yet for some reason, it seems like he still has a problem, even if they're over there.
Yeah. I mean, it's not logical. So, like I said before, like the payoff, it's an emotional payoff. But we got Moreno over here, sweetie. You got your mic on mute. We want to hear your lovely voice.
yes,
Hi,
we sure do.
teacher. Hi, everyone. I'm cleaning. That's what it was. I didn't want to
Oh,
tell you that I was cleaning it to give you an excuse for not getting on the panel.
okay. All right. All right. So, what are your thoughts?
On people of color being racist
Yeah.
Yeah.
to each other. I think it's
Mhm.
stupid because with regards to blacks and Latinos, we're all fighting more or less the same fight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So being racist towards each other is it's we're not getting anywhere by doing that because we'll
But do
have
you
strength
do
in
you
numbers,
think it
right?
do, do you think it makes a difference, like what label we call it? Because we have certain people. It's like
Yeah,
we're kind of split. Like some people say, well, no, it's not racism,
right. I don't
and
think
they
it's
give their
racism.
reasons why, and other people say that it is. It's like, do you think it makes a difference or what?
It kind of doesn't, but I guess it takes it out of context a little bit because we're prejudiced towards each other, but racist no, because we're not in control of anything to affect
Hmm.
anybody's reality or their financial status as white people can or the dominant society that is, and we're not it. So I think it's more prejudice
Yeah. I
instead of
mean,
being
I
racist. But that's just
definitely,
me. I come from your generation, true. So it was prejudice. It wasn't racism.
exactly. So I mean, like, I definitely understand that perspective, but
Mhm.
my thing is that at the end of the day, I don't think it really matters what name you give to it because the effects are just as lethal, you know?
Definitely, definitely.
So
Yeah,
it's
like let's
like,
look at Trayvon Martin, for example. Trayvon Martin is a perfect example of this, right? Trayvon
yeah.
Martin is somebody who's a puppet of white supremacy, right? He's a collaborator, if you will. Does
Well,
he
he was a
benefit from what
victim.
he did?
You mean the
Right.
other
Yeah.
guy,
Yeah.
George
Yeah.
Zimmerman.
George
Hmm.
Zimmerman.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry, sorry. George Zimmerman. Yeah, not Trayvon Martin. But you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I mean,
Yes,
George
yes.
Zimmerman is a collaborator. So it doesn't, but he still did bad, right? It doesn't really matter if he's non-white or whatever. It just doesn't matter.
They tried to suit the narrative though that he was white. That's why I was like, why are they trying to do that? And then make Latinos look bad.
Exactly. So it was like, to me, that was really ridiculous because at the end of the day, we're talking about someone who took a life. So
Right.
what difference does it make if he was, did 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 Trayvon die any harder? If you make him white, like, did he die a different kind of ways? Like, did he die differently?
Yeah.
No, I
Dead
think they
is
were trying to
dead.
throw the narrative to separate Latinos as far as
A life's
melanin.
a life, period.
No, yeah, it is. But I think when you're trying to say he's white, just like the Cuban guy that was part of that, what was that group that he was, and they found out he was mulatto. He was part of a white
Proud
nationalist
Boys?
group as well. Yeah, so it's like you're trying to push a narrative like Latinos see themselves this way. They'll never identify with African Americans per se. Do you understand what I'm saying? The media portrays it. They set up a narrative here and then they run with it, and that's what stays in people's minds.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how division works as well amongst each other. If that makes sense.
Oh, wow.
Well,
Oh yeah, yes, that's a perfect. See, that's proof right there of white supremacy.
Yeah.
Like, Zimmerman went to jail for just pushing his white girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? That's proof of white supremacy. He didn't go to jail
Yeah.
for killing Trayvon, but he went to jail for pushing his white girlfriend. Come on.
yeah, that's dumb.
Cause end of the day, George Singerman, they ain't gonna look at him as white, even he is half white. They're gonna see him as Latino, and they still
He's not
gonna see
even
him
half.
as an enemy. And
He's
I
not
said
even half.
this: let him shoot a white boy or a white woman, see where he can get a prison sentence. 'Cause
Yes,
I bet you he
exactly.
will if
Exactly.
he
So
would done it.
I
See,
want
Oh,
to.
and just to let you know, truth. This guy, I know, you have him up on your screen,
Yeah.
Guanaco. This guy is a complete troll, right? I'm not gonna say to
Yeah.
block him. I mean, it's your choice, but let me ask Guanaco something, bro. Like, why is your hat tilted to the side? Like, you look like a fucking junior high wannabe cholo, and wipe that dirt off the bottom of your chin, bro. Like, for real.
Guanaco. Is he from, like, he's from Central America? Where's he from? Guanaco.
He's Salvadorian. He's
Yeah,
Salvadorian.
that's like a slang for Salvadorians, right? Guanaco.
Yeah, Guanaco.
Yeah. I had a friend when I was in high school. He was from El Salvador. Unfortunately, he got killed accidentally.
Oh shit.
Yeah, he was working in a supermarket. He was a security guard, and one of the other security guards, his gun went off accidentally and shot him. And, like, he was in a coma for years and years until his family just, finally pulled the plug.
Yeah,
But I had
yeah.
two friends. One was from El Salvador, and the other one was from, gosh, what's the neighboring country?
Honduras,
No,
Guatemala,
not Honduras.
Nicaragua.
Nicaragua.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, they used to or was it Nicaragua? Okay, so one of them, like El Salvador, they called them guanacos, and then the other country they called them chapins. I don't remember which country that was. It'll come to me sooner or later, but
I think
so
so.
they had names for each other too.
No, but look, listen, not to be an asshole or anything. Like, I just know that this person is a troll. He likes to post a lot of derogatory stuff.
Yeah,
And
I know.
again, not to be an asshole, but doesn't it look like he has dirt like right at the bottom of his chin?
Well, hey, we don't even know if Guatemala. That's where he was from. Yeah, that my buddy. He was from Guatemala.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. But
But Terrell, let me ask you something. What are your thoughts on, like, okay, so let's say in Canada, for example, I've heard that this Indian guy in Canada is running as prime minister. Like, let's say he gets that position of prime minister. Obviously, I think white people still control the economy, but would you say that a person of color getting some type of position, like either as a prime minister or even in our case with Barack Obama being the president of the United States and he being a person of color, how would you respond to some of the people who say that this is some type of evidence that there's no white supremacy or whatever? Because I've heard some people ask me this question.
Well, one thing I would like to say is that white supremacy can exist if there's a person of color at the top, highest level of the government. White supremacy is still going to be there either there's a person as a prime minister of color or not. But hopefully this prime minister, this native, hopefully he do put more of his people and other different kinds of people in his cabinet to make it more
No,
diverse.
he's not. He's not. When I say Indian, I mean like actually Indian, like not Native American.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
those
like
are two
Hindi.
separate.
Yeah.
Well, I hopefully he do still, even with him, hopefully he be more diverse and put even his people on there, all kinds of different people, and make the captain diverse and not all white, because I feel
Right.
like they're going to send him some white candidates, some white people to put in some positions, and show him some good people instead of let him make his own choice, because
Yeah,
you
that's
got
what
to have
Obama
a
did.
diverse
That's what he
group.
put, like the head of the DHS and everything, and the head of the CIA were all white, basically. Like the head of the agencies were all white. A lot of white people were in his cabinet, you know. Um, and something and an argument too that I like to make is that Barack Obama, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but obviously Barack Obama was not an ally. He damaged the black community like very severely. He overfunded the police with Title 58. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. This guy was 100% a puppet for white supremacy, and I'm going to stand by that and say that just because Barack Obama was president does not mean that there's no white supremacy in the country. That's just ridiculous.
Oh, I agree with you, because Obama was no friend of black people. He wasn't even African American. He was half Kenyan and half white, and he can't even relate to African Americans. He was no friend of ours, and he didn't do nothing for us the whole 8 years he was there. He did something for everybody, especially the alphabet group. So he didn't care about no African American. He used us for votes and took advantage of us. And he
Yep.
telling us that we should care for his legacy. Do not let his legacy go to waste. I say nobody don't care about your legacy. Why we should care for you? You didn't do nothing for us. You had black people dying, crying, in poverty, and you didn't do nothing. You were worried about everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I believe he was a puppet of white supremacy. They got people of different racial groups and colors in positions of power, and they still work for white supremacy, because they've been taught and know how to play the game and how to become part of the system so they can benefit from it. And there
I
got a
heard
lot of
his
people
I
in
heard his
different groups
grandparents were like
that do their thing.
extremely racist too.
Well, Obama family had slaves.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where that whole rumor comes. I don't know if it's true, but I heard that the grandparents that raised Barack Obama were extremely racist.
Well,
So I
that's
believe,
crazy, right? Like they're racist and they're descended from slaves too. So, it just goes to show like there's no logic in any of this, you know? But like I said before, white supremacy, and at the end of the day, we have to recognize what white supremacy is, right? White supremacy is a caste system, right?
Hmm.
Ultimately, it's about a ruling elite staying in power. And white supremacy is just one of many of the tactics that they invented to enable themselves to stay in power. So, it's not a thing in and of itself. And like all systems, right, they cannot function without help. They need to have people in place who facilitate the working of the mechanism. It's an engine.
Right, right. Yeah,
Somebody
no.
has to
I
drive
mean,
the engine,
really,
and it doesn't matter if those hands are white or brown.
white supremacy really, I think, has its origins with, I would say, the Spanish caste system. Because if you look at the Spanish caste system, it was almost like a weird blend of like feudalism and like capitalism. And then
Well,
obviously
yeah.
the republics, like Mexico, for example, was basically the capitalist rebellion against the feudalist system that existed under the Spanish. So when you say that white supremacy is really more of a system at the end of the day, a caste system, I think a perfect example of that would be the Spanish Empire, because
Yeah.
you had some native royalty, you had some mestizos in some positions of power, but still, who was really ultimately, they were all benefiting who? The white Spanish ruling class.
Well, yeah. And then if you take that now and you go back to Spain and you look at what was happening in Spain, it was the same thing. You have to stop and ask yourself, why did so many people get up and leave Spain and England and France to come over here to the Americas, which back in those days, it must have been like the fucking bush, you
Mm,
know? It must have been like these places must have been like real backwaters back in the day. Why were so many people willing to uproot themselves and come over here? So, things could not have been that great back in the old country. So, in Spain and all of Europe, they had that caste system or that feudal system. Feudal system, caste system, same shit, different
yeah,
name, right?
yeah. Like I said, it was a weird
There's,
blend of like
yeah,
feudalism and
there's
capitalism.
no upward mobility. Avenues of upward mobility are very, very few and far between, and in most cases, just flat out non existent.
Hmm.
So, when they come over here to the Americas, who gets put on the bottom of that caste system? The natives and the Africans.
Hmm.
So now you just added one more layer to this shit cake, you know? And that's what
Right.
we're dealing with. And I mean, you even see it, the crazy thing is like when you dissect the aristocracy, you see there were levels to the aristocracy itself, right? So you had the kings, and then underneath them, you had the dukes and the earls and the counts and all of this shit. And there
Right. The
were
nobles, all
restrictions.
that.
Yeah. And there were, even within the aristocracy, there were restrictions on what you could do, who you could marry, and who you couldn't marry, you know? And that whole stratification kept going down and down and down and down. So racism just became one more layer and one more mechanism that they created to keep the ruling elite, the aristocracy, the creme de la creme on top. I mean, even if you were the son of a Spaniard and you were born in the colonies, you were still like, shit ass out of luck in certain instances.
Hmm.
So right away you came down a peg. If you moved to the Americas and you had kids, those kids automatically got demoted. I mean, that's some crazy shit when you think about it. That's some crazy shit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, man, but it's like I said, when I said last night that white people basically rule the planet, the indigenous podcast guy was trying to make a point that, well, you see, Asians, right? Asians, they have two superpowers, right? They have Japan and they have China. And I'm like, okay, and what's your
Yeah.
point? Go on. And this guy told me that because the Chinese, and again, this is not a diss or anything on indigenous podcasts. I like his channel. I support what they upload. But this guy told me that because the Chinese practice racism against Uyghur Muslims, who by the way are Asians. I mean, they're all
Hmm.
uh, you know, Mongoloids, right? I mean, it's just that they're Muslim. And I wanted to tell this guy, like, look, okay, first of all, Uyghur Muslims are not like Arabs, right? Uyghur Muslims are basically a part of the Chinese ethnicity. It's just that they're not recognized by the government, the Han, right?
Well,
And
yeah.
this guy thinks that that this example of the Chinese mistreatment of the Uyghur Muslims is some type of evidence that on a systemic international level, POC, people of color, can be racist. And I just don't think it fits well with the evidence.
Well, I can see both of your points, and I
Mhm.
think I think both of you have valid arguments, and I'll explain. We can't deny the fact that European colonialism was global, right? And in a lot of ways, we're still grappling with the fallout behind that. I mean, look at what's happening in Afghanistan right now, you know? But at the same time, the Chinese, they're on their own bullshit, you know? And, you know, like to us, because we're outsiders in that cultural context, we look at them as if they're all the same. But in their minds, they see distinctions that we don't see, even in terms of what we would consider race. You know, there's little nuances when it comes to little details in phenotype that they see that we just, it doesn't even cross our minds.
Right.
So, do they consider Uyghurs a separate race? I would say in some instances they probably do. But, you know, the main thing here, you know, it goes back to what I said before about white supremacy being a
Or how
tool.
about Tibet? I mean, what about Tibet, right? Like,
Well, yeah, you know, they're you know, they look to everybody, you know, Tibetans, Japanese, Chinese, Koreans, you know, like if you go to Jamaica, anybody who has slanted eyes is Chinese. We just they just them Chinese. We don't say Japanese that Chinese, Koreans Chinese, Vietnamese Chinese, Filipinos Chinese. Everybody is Chinese to us, right? Because we
yeah.
don't recognize those subtleties and differences. But at the end of the day, you know, like what I said before, that white supremacy is ultimately a tool of a class structure. Well, in China, what you have is the same thing. It's an elite, it's a small group of elites who are ruling over everybody else, and they've come up with mechanisms of oppression to keep those people in place.
Hmm.
So, our society, we created racism. That was one of many tools, and this is the thing that we have to realize. Racism was only one of many mechanisms that was created for them to maintain their class structure. So likewise in China, they have their own, you know, the elites over there have their own prejudices and their own strategies that they came up with to keep that insular group in power. So at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. It's just the tools are a little bit different. You know, I think the thing that we have to remember here is that the name of the game, the ultimate name of this game, is maintaining power and privilege, economic and political and social power for our small insular group. So in one region, they might base the mechanism, the primary mechanism that they use might be based on race, like it is in the Western Hemisphere. In another group, another region, the elite group, they look out and say, okay, how can we split it? Oh, we're going to use religion. In another group, it might be, you know, ethnicity or, it's
Yeah, like what happened in Yugoslavia, that was like ethnicity, the civil war.
that was a shitstorm.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew people from Yugoslavia. I mean, they had
Really?
like their own songs and, you know, like their own national anthem. It's like nobody sings those songs anymore because there's no
Hmm.
Yugoslavia. And it's funny because before the Soviet Union collapsed, that was their identity was Yugoslav. But you know, this goes back to what I was saying before that, you know, us looking from the outside in, there's subtleties that we don't understand. You know, so we saw them all as Yugoslav, and their mentality was, yeah, Yugoslav, but right below the surface of that, they had all of these little subcategories that apparently had a lot of meaning for them because they were still
Right.
carrying animosity,
A
over
whole
shit that
war, a
happened
whole war
600
ruled
years
out.
ago.
Yeah, exactly. A
You know?
whole war
Yeah,
ruled out because of that shit.
because of some shit that happened 600 years ago. And it was like the Soviet Union was what was keeping the lid on the fucking garbage can, you know?
Right.
And as soon as the Soviet, system collapsed, it's like
Mhm.
the fucking lid came off and all the cockroaches
Right.
came crawling out.
Right.
And we were all like, holy shit, what the fuck is this?
I thought
you
you
know?
all were friends. I thought you all were friends. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's like we thought they were all just one thing, and now we're hearing about Serbs and Bosnians and Herzegovinian and like, what the fuck is all of that? you know,
Right. Right.
we're like, holy shit. And, it's like they were sitting on that. They were sitting on all of these tensions for all this time.
They were holding a big ass grudge, bro. A big
Oh
ass
my
grudge.
God.
Big ass
And
grudge.
this is why I think it's important to have discussions like this because we might have disagreements and it might get ugly at times, but at least we're getting it out. And somewhere in the mix, as sloppy as it may be at certain times, I think in a lot of ways it offers a certain kind of catharsis,
Hmm.
to get it out. And somewhere in between, you might just come to an understanding. I mean, at least the possibility is there, and you get it out. Because when you pretend that things don't exist, they don't just go away. It just festers.
Yeah, and that's something that I wanted to touch on too, because you make it an excellent point, and that is that really at the end of the day, if we're honest with ourselves, racism, what we call racism is really it derives from capitalism, right? It
Yeah.
derives from a class structure. And it manifests in various different parts of the world. Like you said, like here in the Western Hemisphere, it would obviously be white supremacy, etc.
Hmm.
Probably some parts of Africa still to this day, I would imagine. But it's like what you said in Asia. It's like the whatever autocracy aristocracy has the power will dictate the rules, and if they see
Yeah.
that another group is different from themselves, they will use whatever means, whatever excuses to hold their power and
Hmm.
oppress and marginalize those other people. And what this really ultimately comes down to at the end of the day is money, right? Money, power,
Yeah.
wealth, etc.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, would you have any sympathies towards some of the communists who'd say that, oh well, really it's more of a class struggle at the end of the day, or really need to abolish capitalism in and of itself because abolishing capitalism would get rid of all racism. What are your thoughts
Well, that's a hard thing. I think. Look, I think that we keep working on this thing, and we have to refine it. So the old school, right? We had this
on
old aristocratic mentality, and obviously that's not working out so well for a lot of people. So we have to come up with different ways. Okay, I mean, there's this lady. She has a channel. It's called Jamaica with Irie. Her name is Irina, and she's
Mhm.
originally from Ukraine. She moved to Jamaica, and she has a really great channel. Like showing all of the things, the great things that Jamaica has to offer, and aspects of the history and the culture. And so people are always curious, like why she moved from Ukraine to Jamaica, and it turns out, well, because one of the reasons is Ukraine is like a complete shithole, and she wanted to live someplace where there was good weather. And so she grew up in Ukraine under the Soviet Union. And
Mhm.
so one of her live streams, she was talking about what it really was like under the Soviet system, and that the fact that they never really had true communism. It wasn't communism in the true sense. It was a form of socialism, and there were positive aspects of that system, right? But the
Right.
downside was that the quality of goods and services really suffered because people didn't give a shit. It was like, okay, so why should I give a fuck about customer service if at the end of the day I'm still going to get paid the same amount that this guy over here is getting paid? So why should I kill myself to go above and beyond, or to worry about quality? At the end of the day, I'm still, whether I do a good job or a bad job, I'm still going to get paid the same regardless. So why even bother? She was
Well, so
talking
yeah,
about, like,
supposedly the argument is that, well, you would kill yourself. You would try to do your the best you can at your workplace because it's part of the community. There's no personal
yeah,
property, right? That private well, actually there is personal property because personal property is like a bed or something, right? And I don't
hmm
think communists want to share that. I think they're talking about like private property, like to acquire
yeah,
wealth out of. And there's no such thing under a socialist society. So I
yeah.
think the whole yeah,
So
basically, I was just gonna say that the whole thing is just about like do what you can for the community, not just for yourself. I think that's what they
yeah,
want.
but you see that the problem, what she said is that the problem with that is that because it didn't belong to anybody, it belonged to nobody. Even
Hmm.
theoretically, it belonged to everybody. The reality was that, well, it didn't belong to anyone in particular. So since it didn't belong to anyone in particular, well, that's somebody else's problem. So everybody just, passes the buck, because it's like, well, it's not my problem. It's, the government should take care of it. It's like,
The state, yeah,
yeah, it's like it's the state's problem. The idea that we're all in this together, at the end of the day, it's one of those things that it looks great on paper, but in real life it just turns to shit because of the reality of what human nature is really like. you
hmm,
know
yeah. That's
it's
a lot of
like,
that's what a lot of people say about communism. Like, hey, look, the reason why true communism has never been achieved, and you only had a little, like a bunch of I'm sorry, not Soviet, socialist republics and all that stuff, is
yeah,
because really communism in its true form, the way Marx envisioned it, is impossible because of human nature.
yeah. And the crazy thing is that, like, even in those socialist republics, there was a clear hierarchy. I mean, not everybody was not equal. If you were in the government, you were getting, you got access to all kinds of perks that the ordinary people didn't get. They weren't the ones that had to stand on line to get all kinds of, things. And whenever there were goods in the stores, they were the first ones to get them. If you were part of, the party structure,
Yeah,
so there was
absolutely.
no equality.
So, what would you say is the? I mean, I know this is such a broad question, but since communism doesn't, at least I'm not here to have a full debate about communism, right? This is just kind of
hmm
like a casual convo. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, let's just conclude that okay, communism doesn't work and it'll never work, right? Let's just say that. What would you say? And this is my question for you. Like, what would you say is the ultimate solution to completely abolish white supremacy? Like, is it in capitalism? Is it in buying up land and property away from white people or whatever? Like, what is it?
Well, this is something that's gonna have to.
It's a broad question.
Yeah, it's a really big question, because the economic aspect of it is only one aspect. The other aspect to it is the emotional aspect. So, like, when I talked about why people of color would engage in this kind of behavior, it's because they're getting some kind of emotional payoff. So there's a psychological aspect to this as well, right? And that's something that happens in hierarchical societies, right? There's that emotional part of us that, well, I want to be somebody. And it makes me feel somehow better about myself to know that, somebody else is beneath me, right? So,
Right.
so it's going to take a lot of work. I mean, dismantling the economic structure and coming up with something that's more equitable is part of it. Working on the psychological and the emotional aspect, that's going to be have to be a part of it also. Because people have to find a way of meeting their emotional needs in a way that doesn't disenfranchise or detract from somebody else. And that's really difficult because that means you got to do some work on yourself. If your life isn't, you know, turning out the way you like to, well, that means you're going to have to do some work on yourself and figure out, okay, how do I change this? And most people do not want to do any kind of introspection whatsoever. It's the
Yeah.
scariest shit. It's painful.
Well, you said that you even met someone like Dominican Renaissance, like in real life in a
Oh
subway
yeah.
station, right?
Mhm.
So when did you talk to him? Did you have a conversation about any of the stuff, or was it just like a hi and bye thing?
Oh, you mean Dumran or some other individual?
No, Domran.
Oh, okay. So Dumran.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
I
So
mean,
what
we're talking
happened
about
is
him at
I'm
the end of the
walking
day,
down.
right?
I'm walking down Broadway. I was with Lily. It was me
Yeah,
and Lily.
yeah,
We
yeah.
were actually going to a Cuban Chinese restaurant because it was like one of the last Cuban Chinese restaurants left in New York, right? So we're on Broadway. It's either, I think it was 98th Street.
98th Street.
98th Street and Broadway.
Yeah, by the train station.
Yeah, we're walking down Broadway and I'm right across the street from the restaurant and I see this person walk right in front of me, like right across me. And I look and I'm like, no fucking way. I was like, cannot be. And so I cross the street and I really look, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me. It was him. And to this day, I regret not saying anything. I should have said hi. I really regret to this day. I really
Imagine the
regret it.
memes, like imagine the memes that would come from that interaction. That would be
Oh my
amazing.
God.
Yeah,
Dude, it was like,
the
what are the
memes, bro.
chances? It was like,
What are the chances?
I was like, God is fucking with me. Like, what are the chances? Like, out of everybody that I could have crossed paths with, him. Why him? Like,
Yeah. You know what you should have done? You should have just walked past him and just whispered in his ear, "You'll never be white." Like that.
oh Lord. Listen, I really think I really think I dropped a golden opportunity to probably, you know, to probably have some kind of positive interaction, but I don't know, when I'm on the other side and I'm being evaluated and did I meet all of my objectives, I definitely think that's going to be one of my demerits. Like I didn't handle that golden opportunity.
Yeah.
But that was like so fucking hilarious. I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
No, I bet. I bet. And
I should I should have said hi. I should have said something.
you should have said
I
something,
should
bro.
have said something.
Even if it was
But
gonna be,
hey,
like something that wasn't gonna be like something that wasn't gonna really get through to him at the end of the day, you should have at least like said something, anything. You know what I'm saying?
honestly, at that point, I would have just wanted to have a conversation and to just, cuz it's a different interaction when you're online with someone than when you're with them face to face. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's true
S-
with everything.
Yeah, so I at that point, I would have really wanted to have a conversation and just find out why he was so hateful, like all of that was coming from. It wasn't until later that I just really developed a genuine loathing for him, and that's probably because I didn't get I didn't take the golden opportunity to learn the human side of this tortured individual, and maybe I would have had more compassion and just walked away and left it alone.
Yeah. You know what I think is? I think that some of these, because, like with me personally, for example, years ago, I was a big Trump supporter. I was like a big right winger, like years ago. We're talking about like 2017. And I supported Trump, and I kind of got myself into a lot of these white nationalist spheres online through message
Hmm.
boards and things like that. And hey, I even created a channel. I never showed my face back then, but at least I created a channel. And for me personally, the reason why I kind of fell into that trap of insanity was because, like I said before, I came across a bunch of, like, when I was a very young person, like we're talking about 11 years old, 12 years old. I came across a bunch of, like, YouTube videos about some crazy shit, stuff about like the Illuminati, the New
Hmm.
World Order, stuff like that. And, the conspiracy crap, right? And that kind of influenced my mind to adopt a more conservative, right wing point of view, right? So for a little bit as a kid, I was like in that whole circle of that subculture online. And then when Trump got elected, obviously, the right wing circles that I was around at the time, that I was in at the time, they were all like, oh yeah, we got to support Trump. Trump's our big guy. And then of course, little by little, I got introduced to white nationalism, and then I fell for it and all that stuff. And for me, I think the reason why I was in that rabbit hole, because that's what it is. Once you get into all this
Hmm.
crazy shit, it's really a rabbit hole. From Alex Jones to Ustin Newlands to Steven Crowder, all of these people, it's a fucking rabbit hole. And I got into it honestly because me at the time, being a young person, I just wanted to be like unique. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to
Hmm.
like kind of stand out a little bit, be against the norm, be like a rebel, because when we're young, we all kind of have that sentiment. We want to rebel against something. We want to have some type of purpose in life, some type of mission. So how does this relate to Domren? Well, I don't know Domren's story exactly, but I can say that most likely, I think in my opinion at least, I think Dom Ren, the reason why he kind of went into these white nationalist circles and basically adopted his own version of white nationalism, like, oh hey, you guys are dealing with the Mexican immigrants. Well, here in the DR, we're dealing with the Haitians. We're dealing with the growing black problem, right? I think he kind of got into that stuff because the kid, and he's a young person, right? I don't know how old he is, but I know he's a young person. He wanted to also be unique. He wanted to stand
Yeah.
out, like, hey, I'm this black person, right? Because he's 68% black, and he's obviously, like, you could just see that he's black. I'm this black person who hates my own people. I'm gonna stand out, look cool, and I'm gonna say the most crazy shit that's completely against the norm. And I'm
Hmm.
going to make a whole YouTube channel about this. I'm gonna revolve my identity around this cause that I've invented in my mind, which is Dominican nationalism. That's my opinion. I think he just wants a cause, some type of purpose in life to fill his empty void.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying before. So what you just explained was the emotional, the emotional paycheck that you got, right? So for you, it wasn't about having any tangible thing that you got out of it, but you got an emotional payoff. And that was feeling that you were a part of something, feeling that you were unique, appreciated, like a sense of purpose.
Yeah, like a
So
part of the club. Yeah.
so that's what I'm saying. A lot of people, people of color, when we analyze, well, why do they do this? They have various emotional payoffs. They've got emotional deficits in their lives. And this is one vehicle that is available to them that they can get a payoff, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
there
Absolutely.
was this, gosh, what was this movie? It was the Harriet Tubman movie. There was a character in that movie that was, he wasn't a slave, but he was attached to the slave catcher. And, it's like they showed his backstory, and he was a slave when he was like a real young child. He must have been like 3 or 4 years old. And, his he ends up on his father's farm. And so this guy, he buys him and he sets him free. And so he's his little mascot, And so even though this guy is doing these horrible things towards his own people, he goes along with it because the slave catcher gives him a sense of purpose, a sense of
Yeah.
identity, you
It
know?
fills the empty void. It fills the
It
empty void
fills an
inside.
empty void. And then the
Yeah.
slave catcher himself, he was never brought up to be a racist because his father did. How did he end up with the slave? Oh, it wasn't from his father. It was some other kind of situation how he ended up with this kid. But his father was not a racist. He didn't want to have Pocho didn't want to have slaves, but uh he wasn't any good at anything in life. His father was a blacksmith, and he was no good at that. He wasn't good at any kind of profession that he set his hands to. But when it came to entrapping slaves and trapping him down, well, that's something that he could do, and it gave him a sense of purpose. Hey, Jose, what's up?
Good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody today?
Everybody's doing
Hey, Jose.
fine. Morena's over here. She's doing her house cleaning. We're doing Radical's live stream last night. 2.0.
Oh yes, that was a very interesting panel discussion.
Good afternoon, Jose.
Good afternoon. I was also on Friday stream earlier.
What happened over there? You all like seemed like you were traumatized from that experience.
No, no, no. What it's just that. It's just that when I saw uh Bitcoin popping in, I figured, you know what, this is a good time for me to get out.
Oh my God.
I mean, one thing about age. If you're lucky, you'll gain some wisdom.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Yeah, but it was an interesting stream last stream regarding racism, and the reality is these people that has these views, um, they have their own twisted sense of reality.
Yeah,
So that kind of explains, if you can explain their so-called logic.
or lack thereof. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I was discussing with Pocho before. The Hispano Teps got him apparently. You know, these
That's
these
this is the
people. There's
information age, too. That's why the younger generation sees things the way they do. They just go
say
on the
that
computer and
again.
get the information. This is the information age. So the
Yeah,
younger youth, they just go on the computer and look stuff up and throw little documents at you, and they haven't lived life yet. They're just going based off what they're reading almost.
yeah. It's very emotionally based. But when they get involved with these kind of circles, they're getting an emotional payoff because obviously there's some kind of deficit in their lives, right?
Hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know what their social circles are like, if they have social circles, like any meaningful. social circles. I don't know what the quality of their family structure is like, but there's obviously
Social
some
circles are
kind of
different
deficit.
because
Oh,
we grew up differently. You know, kids played outside and we have more social interaction, birthday parties, certain things that gather together,
Oh,
you
here's
know,
Pocho.
with your
Damn, I
peers.
didn't see him down there.
Look at his
I'm
phone.
sorry, Morena.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to
sorry,
cut you off, but
That's okay.
yeah.
I didn't see Pocho
My
down
other
there.
phone, you can hear me, right?
I can hear you kind of. I hear like there's some kind
I
of
think it's Jose.
background noise.
I think it's Jose.
okay, okay, sure.
Oh, Jose, you're on the bus. Okay, that's what it is. Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sorry. I didn't
Yeah,
see you
I
down
don't
there, man.
think
It's like you didn't come up on my screen. I was like, why didn't he come back?
yeah. I don't know. I was here the whole time. It's just that my other phone was going through some type of system update, and it literally just like turned off by itself, and then it just returned on itself. So I was like, okay, time to get my other phone because I have two phones. Not to brag, yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, like Jose was making a point. I mean, I think we pretty much all recognize the fact that these people they're lacking something in their lives, and unfortunately, they're all trying to get their needs met, but they're not going about it in the best way. You know. But listen, there a lot of them are young. So hopefully there's hope for the future.
That's
So
scary too. It's really scary.
it is
Yeah.
scary. Well, it's kind of scary to think if they don't grow out of it, what they'll become. I mean, I think there's some individuals that are just totally lost and they're hopeless.
I say all the
Um,
time. I think the majority is because they're not critical thinkers. I mean, I worked with this generation, and between the work ethic and not being able and having to be handheld with almost everything,
yeah.
they don't want to think. They just want you to give them an answer. Like they don't want to try to figure stuff out. They just if it's not there in front of their face, or if they can't Google it, forget it.
But
Well, yeah.
if I may cut in, it is not that I don't want answers. It's just that I think they're looking for particular answers. So therefore, when you give them with facts, um, they can't deal with it.
Jose, I gotta
Yeah.
say, like you are cutting off it, like it's just crazy. Like the audio is just crazy.
Say that again.
The audio was crazy.
It's yours.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
this one
audio.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
your audio before was like really clear.
Yeah, this one is like a little bit staticky, right? So
Yeah.
Mhm.
what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get out of here, right? I'm gonna come back, but hopefully my other phone won't just completely turn off on
Well,
itself.
well,
Good stuff.
we're coming up on the 2 hour mark, and I gotta I would love to keep the conversation going, but I got like other things I need to pay attention to. So, since you're gonna jump out, you want to give like your last words?
Yeah, absolutely. So my last words are number one, this was a great stream. I hope that you share this to Rad. Maybe he could upload it on his page. That would be awesome, right? Because we did touch on a lot of things that we couldn't touch on yesterday, right? Because there was a whole gender war that happened on last
Well,
night's stream. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, it
So,
kind of went off into another area, which I
yeah,
think is an important conversation that needs to be had. But it was kind of like you know, it kind of took us off course.
right. So that's the first thing I'll say. The second thing I'll say is this, when it comes to white supremacy, yes, white supremacy 100% exists. No people of color, at least, systemically speaking, I don't think they could truly be racist. But like Jesse Lee Peterson once said, we're all white on the inside, so maybe they can be. I don't know.
No, maybe.
All righty, man.
Yeah,
It was a pleasure having you speak with us, man.
yeah. Take care. Take care.
All right, man. Take it easy. So, Morena, sweetie,
Yes.
any last word?
With regards to with regards to us being racist, I don't feel that we're racist. I already explained that part.
Hmm.
But I think in order for us to be able to come together, we have to come together with our own individual groups first,
Yeah.
especially with Latinos, because Caribbean Latinos, Central American, South American, Mexico, we all have to be on the same page and then come together. And
Mhm.
then, if that can be done, then try to come to some accord with African Americans and then move as a united front, right? To confront
Yeah.
white supremacy. But until that's done, no, I don't believe anything like that's going to happen.
Mm. Yeah. Well,
But
I mean, I think at least we can come together on issues where, you know, issues that we all share, like when it comes to certain things within the community, like, education, housing,
definitely.
medical care, like I think we definitely can and should come together on, those things that affect all of us as a whole.
Right.
But I
Okay.
definitely understand where you're coming from, you know.
Because I don't think as
Absolutely.
Latino we're all on the same page either when it comes to that. Because
Yeah,
everybody has their own grievances depending on where they're at,
exactly. That's a
and
little
their own
hard.
realities. Yeah. So, I don't know.
All righty,
My
sweetie. Well,
brethren
thank
from
you
New
so
York,
much
though.
for thank you for honoring my stream with your presence.
Thank you. Do it more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to do it more often. I do.
And not just
Bye,
race, Keith,
Marine.
okay?
No, but we'll talk about other things. I know you want to talk about spiritual matters. So I'll
Yes,
do
sir.
more of those.
Yes, sir. I might be walking down that path soon. I was talking to my mom about that today. So that's something nice to touch on.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
All
joining
right,
us.
BT. Yes, be safe, please.
Okay, you too. Take care. Bye, Terrell.
Thank you.
Bye, Marine.
Hey, Terrell. Any
Yes.
last thoughts?
Well, I feel like this is a good live stream, and to me, people of different races practice racism all the time, whether against blacks against other blacks, Asians versus Latinos, and Middle Eastern versus Asians. They practice every day, but I feel like at a point we're gonna have to pull together and stop it. Because at the end of the day, white supremacy is against all of us, and we don't got time to be attacking other groups based on differences.
Absolutely.
Because this will happen all over the world. Well, one group is darker than the other one, then they want to be racist and be colorist, and but like I said, white supremacy had an effect on everybody globally when it was introduced. So it had people going
Yeah,
against other people and even against themselves.
exactly. That's the part, that's the missing point that a lot of people don't realize is that there's a lot of so-called white people or people who are categorized as white in this system who are actually being harmed because nobody's taking a look at the systems of poverty and injustice that they're facing, and they don't have a platform to fight on because we don't recognize their plight, and they can't claim racism because technically they're part of the white race. So they end up being forgotten.
Yep,
Yeah,
indeed.
so I mean, this is something that definitely does negatively impact all of our lives, in ways that a lot of that may not seem obvious on the surface.
Yeah, hopefully one day people can wake up because a
Well,
lot of
yeah,
people are being used as tools and they don't know that they're
yeah,
harming themselves at the end of the day.
exactly. Well, like my grandmother used to say, if you spit in the sky, it falls in your face. So, but Terrell, thanks for stopping by, man. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. You have a good one.
All right, man. So, Jose, I saved you for last.
Okay, well, I saw this is regarding Radical's closed panel last night.
Yeah,
The fact of the matter is, unfortunately, we have a great deal of delusional people, and their sense of reality is really out the kilter. I think the best thing we can do is, first of all, learn how to love ourselves and appreciate ourselves, because if we do not love ourselves, we cannot love others. If you don't mind, when I get home, I just want to post the link to my channel in your comment section. So
Sure,
just because
absolutely.
I'm trying to grow my channel, so I'm trying to be a productive source in YouTube because there's a lack.
Yeah,
Um, so, but as always, to teacher, you always give a great stream. I wish you do it more often. I know time is busy, but
yeah,
we have to deal with the manure that other people put out,
yeah,
and unfortunately, there's a great deal of manure out there.
absolutely. Well, I definitely always appreciate what you have to share in your insights, and you were someone that I always look forward to when, Tina would be having her lives. So, if you want to leave your link in my comments below, by all means, you're welcome.
Oh,
And
and just to let everybody know, as far as future topics, I'm going to be dealing with a part two about how to be a homeowner.
that's
I'm
great.
actually going to have the person who helped me got my apartment in Rochester to share
Hmm.
her insights. I also will be doing a live stream regarding how to deal with stress during the holidays because
Yeah.
they are upcoming, and something similar to what I spoke about is the censorship in YouTube, which is has political correctness gone awry?
Um, I think yeah, I think in certain instances where like it's a little overkill,
Yeah.
you know?
So I plan to extend an invitation to Denise and Radical Latino. Of course, you're more than welcome to jump in
Yeah.
um, to show um, your expertise because unfortunately, we're living in a time that you have to be very so careful with what you say because the most innocent words can be taken in the wrong context. I mean,
Exactly.
so you got to be very careful, and this is why I'm having this live stream because it's there. We have to face it.
Yeah. Well, I definitely wish that I could participate in more of your streams and stuff, but man, it's I hope that I'll be able to participate more in the future, but I definitely support you in, your endeavors to grow your channel.
Well, we gotta look out for each other. I mean, unfortunately, there's not too many people of high quality in YouTube Lab. So therefore, when
Yeah.
we do see people of quality, we gotta look out for each other because we're like an extended family.
Yeah, absolutely. I
So
mean, like there's positives to this social media thing, and this is one of them, you know.
yes,
But
and one thing I noticed, there's a common thread of certain people that have been attacked. People
mhm,
like yourself, Denise, Radical, uh, Christina,
yeah,
and
that's crazy.
Brotep to an extent, is that people who cannot analyze things properly have
Hmm.
a problem with their content. And all I got to say is, no one's taking a gun to your head to watch their material.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, and I know I'm gonna have haters.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have haters for my content. I'm gonna have haters for the people I'm gonna associate. And you know what? I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna be 59 next month, but really, I don't care.
Hmm.
You don't like my material? Don't watch it.
You're gonna be how old?
59.
Oh, okay. Man, I have a whole bunch of friends that are like right at that age. You're like one of four people that I know in my circle.
Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm planning to do a live stream on my birthday just to have an open discussion. Anyone can talk
Yeah.
about anything they want. Just be respectful.
The surprise is that they have waiting in store for them when they reach a certain ages.
Oh yeah, you know what? You know, some of these young people, they like to make fun of me because of my age and how I look.
Mhm.
They better pray they look that good at 59.
Well, I mean, for somebody who's pushing 60, I mean, look, you got no wrinkles. Okay, so you lost your hair, but if you shaved your head and you dyed your beard, you'd look like a hell of a lot younger than what you really are.
You know what's funny? Denise has said the same thing. I'm so. I mean, I don't know. You know what? I just cannot see myself being bald. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think my girlfriend would appreciate it either. Because you gotta
Well, you
please,
can.
you gotta please, you gotta please your boo.
Well, you can get it like shaped up or whatever. There's a lot of things that barbers can do these days.
Well,
Hook
there's
it
not
up
much.
and give you
Okay,
like a
true,
fresh
but then
look.
again, there's not much to work at, as you can see.
Well, they can hook up your mustache.
That too. But then again, with this pandemic, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, they can listen, man. They can hook up your mustache. Dye it, bring it back to the original color.
yeah, but you know what? God made it this way. Why do? Why are you trying to improve in perfection?
Listen, that's where we disagree. I dye this shit, man. Listen,
Okay, well, you know what? You're
after my
entitled.
mom,
You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm gonna just keep it 100 that way.
listen, after my mom passed away, man, it's like I listen. I got so much grays. It was like unbelievable, man. I'm like, oh no, I ain't going out. You know what? If it went with my skin tone more, I don't think I would mind, but it really doesn't blend with my skin. It doesn't complement my skin tone at all. It literally
Um,
looks like I ate a box of crackers and I didn't clean my mouth.
but you know something? I actually saw Don Rand's stream on his response to your stream on Tina's channel.
Yeah.
That was interesting, to say the least. But
Mm.
you know, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah.
So,
It is what it is, but man, it's like listen, I wish like either it would come all in or I don't know. I don't know. There's some people like that salt and pepper look really looks great on them,
okay.
but I'm not one of those people. Like, it really doesn't compliment me. So I'm like, shit, God made chemicals for a reason.
But you know what's funny? Now now I'll get on Fighter Stream if the topic is reasonable. Like for example, she had Universal Trip.
Uh-huh.
Okay, actually, she's a very articulate young lady. She's very articulate, very smart, and you know the fact that the men were going after her talked because she's talking about, well, if a woman doesn't want to get to be married, wants to stay single, that's fine. I mean, it's like, what is so wrong with that? I mean, but you know, that's their opinion.
Hmm.
You know, they're entitled to their opinion. And actually, Bitcoin actually said that I was simping over her, dude.
He's a strange one.
du- First of all, dude, first of all, dude, I have a girlfriend. Okay, she's either going to come over here in December, or I'm going to go to the yard next year. So
Hmm.
I don't need to simp. I don't need to. But you know what?
I
That's
think
his
I think
opinion.
Bitcoin is one of those people that he just loves to say, inflammatory things and, watch people get, like all bent out of shape.
Okay, but you know what? He needs therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, he needs,
But
he needs therapy.
I think that's his payoff. It's like he loves to. It's like he loves to be the one to throw like cold water in a hot frying pan. You know.
Uh huh. Yeah. Well, it was interesting to see Inquisidor opine regarding Universal Trip, talking about how you know he was criticizing her for her attire. First of all, she looked very well. Okay, she didn't dress like a hoe. She didn't dress like a thought. Okay, and the fact of the matter is she was thus voicing an opinion. If you don't agree with it, fine, but don't obsess because one young person decides, you know what, maybe it's not, maybe now's not the time to get married or whatever, or to be very selective regarding who you hook up with. But
Listen,
that's me. But
everything ain't for everybody, and there's a lot of people that got no business getting married or having kids.
true.
So
Well, now I'm gonna let you go because I know you got things to do. Um, Now I was just coming from the gym, so which is usually I don't get on outside. It's just that I was coming to the gym and I just happened to saw your stream.
yeah, well, I did do it just like at the last second. You know, it's not like I put a notice out there for everyone,
Uh huh.
which is usually my mo. It's just very random. But I need to get more organized with it. But as I get other parts of my life more, you know, I meet certain objectives, I think I'll have more time to be organized with, this channel and my other channel. I have another channel also that's been like really neglected for years, so
Hmm.
but I got a lot of pots on the stove, so
I hear you. I hear you. I hear
yeah.
you. But just remember that 24 hours in a day, whatever you don't get done today, try to get it done tomorrow.
Yep. So that's what I'm gonna do now, man. I'm gonna go and try to get some errands done and a couple of other things before the sunlight goes down, and then I'll do some like busy work at
Okay.
that point. I got a lot of stuff to do.
All right. It's always a pleasure. Stay safe.
Likewise. All
Take
righty, you
care.
take it easy.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye. Well, everybody, that is our stream today. Thank you all for coming in and sharing this time with us. Um, for my haters and my friends, thank you for coming by. So, just to cap it off once again, like my thing is that we need to, hold people accountable for bad behavior, whether they be people of color, where they be people in our own ethnic group or another ethnic group. I don't think we should have two different standards. If there's people going around who are saying disparaging things about other groups of people or their own groups of people, we definitely should hold them accountable because that kind of behavior is toxic and it's damaging. It damages people's lives, and that's what we need to look at. I don't think we should be cutting anybody a pass just because they happen to belong to a certain ethnic group. Damage is damage. But I will see you guys again in another live stream. We will be talking about other other issues, just points of view to help us have a better quality of life. So, once again, everybody, love and light, peace, prosperity, and perfect health to all of you. Until the next time. Bye bye.